You are now tuned into I Shaved My Ass for This, a podcast about all things dating and desire from the perspective of those on the margins. Here's your host, Natalia Lee Brown.
Welcome back to I Shaved My Ass for This, the show about all things dating and desire from the perspective of the margins. I'm your host, Natalia Lee Brown, and I'm just so happy to have a second show. Let me tell you, the first show, the series premiered last week, Thursday, November the 2nd, and I'm happy that I made it to number 2. I can't even lie. For everybody who tuned in, shouted it out, gave me a follow on socials, thank you so much. Seriously, I saw each and every one. And it's kind of like when you're young and you have a birthday party, and before the first guest arrives, you're just there wondering, is anybody going to show up? So, thanks for being down at the very start of the journey. It's a learning process, so learn along with me. And yeah, let's get into episode number 2. So this week, we're going to talk about something that initially, when I thought about the topic, I was really triggered by. The guest that we have on today is a friend of mine, a new friend that I've made over here in London. And I remember back in late summer, we were at a local market, just kind of browsing around, and we were talking about dating, of course, and he was telling me a little bit about his history, and he described the women that he dated as crazy. And I immediately got interested because number one, I was triggered, and number two, here was finally an opportunity for me to talk to a straight man about what the hell crazy means. When somebody is acting crazy, when you're dating somebody and they turn crazy, it's such a blanketed term that I feel as though, and this is my personal feeling and opinion, but I feel as though men weaponize the word crazy because other men and some women will just kind of automatically assume they might harken back to a moment when their partners acted out of pocket, or when they felt as though the actions of the person that they were involved with were unjust. And it's this very broad term to describe something that's kind of specific that happens in relationships. Before I introduce my guest and we get into the topic of conversation, please join me on this story time. So I realized that I was triggered because in my dating history, I've been the crazy girl. I know for a fact that there are 2 people that I've dated in the past who walked away from the relationship and called me crazy. I know this because I've heard it through the grapevine. People have told me what these men have said, and it hurt. More than being selfish, more than being self-centered, or whatever else people can say to describe a former partner in the spirit of hurt and feeling some type of way after the relationship has ended. Being described as crazy, it hit a particular nerve in me because the situations that led to the relationship demise were not one-sided, A, and B, the kind of crescendo of events was building for quite some time. And that leads me to my own hypothesis that somebody that you're dating just doesn't pop up one day and is unhinged, right? Not only is describing somebody as crazy a very ableist term and problematic because people do have mental illness, myself included. I do suffer with depression. I do suffer with anxiety. Topics for a later episode. But to weaponize those disorders without any context, if that is the case, is unfair. And if the person doesn't have any type of disorder, or they're just acting in a way that you prefer they didn't, or they're not acting according to your standards, or what have you, that doesn't mean that somebody's crazy. Okay? So a few years ago, a long time ago, I had graduated from university. And I had a really hard time finding my first job. In fact, when I graduated initially, I was working at a skincare counter in the mall. I was so unhappy. The job market was absolute trash. I had thought that I wanted to be a lawyer at the time, and so I was fighting so hard to work for a nonprofit, and I couldn't get my foot in the door. This went on for months, and I was getting discouraged, When I finally did land that coveted nonprofit job, it was not what I thought it would be. It was not what I had hoped it would be. I was like a square peg trying to fit in a round hole. It just wasn't a fit. On the plus side, I came to the conclusion that I did not want to be a lawyer. But on the negative side, I had really struggled through those few years at that job. It was in this context that I met this particular partner, the first person to call me crazy. And at that point in my life, when I had linked up with him, I was really aware of the fact that I didn't like him necessarily, but I liked the attention that I got. I liked feeling wanted. I liked having an activity partner. I liked having something new in my life. I remember not really wanting to invite him to things. I remember not really introducing him to friends outside of my roommate because I knew ultimately that this wasn't the person that I was going to end up with, but selfishly, I kept engaging in this relationship because my life was fucked up. I was in a bad place. So this went on for about 3 months. During the course of 3 months, as you may deduce by now, the experience wasn't great. I wasn't the most attentive, and he was highly insecure. I remember this one time we had gone out for tacos, and I was just honestly asking this guy about his tacos, like somebody who wasn't my type. He wasn't flirting with me, nothing. I was just spending so much time with my partner at that moment that having another casual conversation was exciting to me. And the guy that I was dating got up and left mid-meal after 2 or 3 lines of conversation, and I wish I was joking. I was so embarrassed. Another moment in time, we had gone to the grocery store, the shops, and I ran into an ex of mine. This ex was somebody who I had ended on really good terms with. I ended up working for him for a year or 2 after we broke up, and we were cool. I saw him in other relationships. He saw me in other relationships. There was never any jealousy. But when the guy, we'll call him Marcus for the purpose of the story. The ex that I'm talking about in this story, his name is going to be Marcus. When Marcus saw me talking to my older ex, his whole setup changed. His body language changed. He got quiet. And to me, I'm just seeing an old friend, but he was like, oh, like, are you guys still talking? And just asking all these really prodding extra questions. Our 3-month relationship was filled with moments like that, with moments of instability, with moments of confusion, chaos. We weren't a good match because at the end of the day, 2 people who are not in the best places personally are going to be in a messed up place together. So the fateful morning comes. I think the night before we had some kind of argument. I think I'd asked for a break because I've been known to do that. And I woke up to the most scathing, hateful email I have ever received in my entire life. Mind you, this was my last day at my job before I went to go and freelance as a rideshare driver and a restaurant hostess. So I'm getting ready for my very last day. I open up this email and it's just filled with accusations that I'm diseased, that I am doing nothing with my life because I haven't pursued my creative endeavors. It was a lot of projection because Marcus was a creative who hadn't reached the levels of success and notoriety that he had hoped. But in that moment where I'm tired, I have a lot of emotions going because it's my last day at work, I lose it. I get in my car, I drive over to Marcus's house, I knock on the door, and mind you, it's like 8 in the morning because I have to be at work. And he's blocking the doorway. And in my desperate attempts at communication, I push past him. When I push past him, his roommate comes out. There's this commotion. And the roommate, poor guy, he's all flabbergasted. And Marcus decides to call the police. And for context, I'm Black, Marcus is not. Take a wild guess at what Marcus is. So the San Francisco PD show up. Luckily, they can see the absurdity of the situation. Thank God. And they just tell me to go home. I'm left to go to work in shambles. The last impression that I left at that job, they must have thought I was nuts and they were happy to see me go because I was broke down. In the weeks that followed, thanks to the homies out there, I got word that Marcus was going around town telling people that I was crazy, telling people that I was still sleeping with my ex, that my ex had probably given me an STD, which is false, and really creating this narrative about me. And it's one that really impacted my life. I had friends who I was just becoming close with at the time, and their circle had heard about the rumors and had warned them against hanging out with me. I had people who were very distant, and it hurts because when you are described as crazy or when you are characterized in such a way, it is so rare that people take the time to get your side, to even acknowledge your humanity in the situation, that there are two elements in every relationship. Back to my guest today, when I heard, all these years later, when I heard a friend of mine describe their dating history as dating quote unquote crazy women, I had to get to the bottom of it. We had a really delightful and really open conversation. So please enjoy this discussion with my friend, actor and musician, Jammy Kasongo. Back again with another guest who agreed to talk to me for some reason. So, guest, could you please introduce yourself to the I Shaved My Ass for This audience?
Hello, audience. My name is Jammy Kasongo.
And Jammy, what is it that you do and how do you identify?
I'm an actor and a musician, and I identify as him, he.
Okay. And who do you usually date?
I usually date women.
Okay. So just to get this kicked off, just kind of this is like what I like to call my icebreaker round. Could you give us a story that kind of had you thinking, maybe literally or figuratively, I shaved my ass for this in terms of dating? Anything that kind of let you down, that was funny, that was weird, that like maybe low-key was scary? I don't know.
Yeah, I think I do. It was, this was more than a few years ago. I just graduated from uni. I was just getting into the game, doing the audition thing and all that. I was working at a gastropub in Chelsea, and I was a waiter, and there was a waitress there, and we flirted here and there, time to time, and then one night, one thing led to another, and it was cool. It was we had a good time, and she seemed like a really cool person overall. And I was like, oh, this is someone that I could definitely hang out with again.
Right.
And then about a few days after that night, we were at work at the same time, and like a hen do, like a bachelorette party had come in.
Right. Oh, just for the listeners, Jammy is American, but he lives in the UK. So if you hear kind of like a bootleg accent, that's why.
Wow. You just straight came from me. I mean, you weren't even summoned. That's great. Thank you so much. Yeah, I would have wore a vest had I known. My goodness.
Please continue, please.
Yeah. So this bachelorette party comes in, and they're my table. I'm doing my job. I'm waiting this table. Whoop, whoop. The organizer of the Hindu at the end of the meal, we're just chatting. She's telling me what what she does, and all this stuff. I was having, just a conversation. I'm clearing the table. I'm taking the plates back to the kitchen, and this female's just kind of there, like she was like, and it seemed like she was there for like a minute, like she'd been waiting
The
for me to.
homegirl, your coworker homegirl.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So it seems like she's sitting there, she's waiting for me. And I come through, and I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And she's like, "So what was that?" I was like, "I'm sorry, what was what?" She was like, "So did you like? So who's that? Who's that chick at the table?" I was like, "You mean the Hindu?" It's like, "Yeah, who's that you were talking to?" "You mean the person that organized the thing?" And and she was like, "Oh, she was the organizer." I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Oh," and then she goes, "Oh, that's crazy. I thought she said the." And she tried to like laugh it off. I let it slide. I was just like, maybe miscommunication, maybe something else. That night, I get home. I'm chilling. Send her, "Hey, let's hang out tomorrow. Some good night." Da, da, da. And she's like, she says something back. "Yeah, good night." She is, and just so you know, if some chicks try to talk to my man like that chick was talking to you tonight, I don't know what I do. Wink face. When I tell you,
Girl, what?
oh, oh,
Okay, so just to clarify at this point, you guys had one thing led to another once, right? Just once.
yeah, just once.
Was there any sort of like conversation in terms of like, this is what we're doing now, or that was fun, like let's keep it cool, or was there any kind of conversation about the hookup before?
After, there was that, "Oh, that was really fun," you know, yeah, that was kind of it. There was no, I wouldn't say there wasn't like a, "So shall we talk about what just happened?" And
Right.
no, it seemed the atmosphere seemed very casual. It was like, "Yo, that was fun. That was cool.
Okay.
What are you up to today?"
Right.
"Yo, I'm doing this. What are you up to today?" There was no agreement it would even happen again. It was just kind of like,
Gotcha.
"Yeah, cool. See you at work," type thing. So I'm like, "Oh, cool. That was cool. Great."
Yeah.
That was, I'm, walking on sunshine type. I was just like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I can get on with my day, my life, whatever."
Yeah.
And, all of a sudden I'm in a relationship of some kind that I had no idea of. Like, she watching me like we've been married for like 5 years, like we got 2 kids or something. Like, it just seemed to have gone from 0 to 100 extremely quickly. And so the next day, I hit her up and I was like, "Yo, let's grab a coffee." Let's go. And she's like, "Oh no, I can't today. I'm really busy." I was like, That's cool. You know what? I just want you to know, like, I don't think we're in a relationship. I hope that I didn't give that impression to you. But like, I just want to make clear, like, that's not the thing. I'm not really looking for that right now.
Right.
If you want to keep hanging out, that's cool. But if not, I understand.
Right.
To which I didn't get a response. It was just kind of like, it was it. And then work was like, and I was just like, "What do I do? Like, do I need to?"
What did you do? Because you kind of shot where you ate in terms of you have to see her. There has to be this, like, what do you do in that situation?
I had to go to work, didn't I? So
Yeah.
I was like, well, I don't know what's going to happen. So I'll just have to deal with whatever happens if something happens. Like, after that message was sent, the next like 2 shifts I had, she wasn't on. So some time had gone by.
Right.
And then by that 3rd shift, it was, hey. I was shook. I was just shook. It came out of, it just was so, she was so like confident about it too. Like, it was like, boom, this is it. I don't know if she thought she was like being cool, like, yeah, I know what I want type of thing or whatever. But it came on strong. It was potent.
It wasn't. Okay. So the reason why I think that story is great, because background, the stories that I've heard of your dating life have this theme where there is a kind of shift towards intensity, and kind of seemingly maybe unbeknownst to you, but the way that you have kind of characterized it is how so many straight guys characterize intensity, or when something happens, as X, Y, and Z was crazy, right? So I want to talk
Mm.
about crazy and like what that means, and why you think you attract people who present themselves in a way that you can describe as crazy.
Crazy to me,
Mm,
I guess, is what I would define as toxic intensity. It's like somebody trying to distract themselves from something else. It seems like such a latch on, like a leech type of thing.
right.
And in my experiences, the running theme is this person's just gotten out of a relationship. This
Okay.
person is dealing with some type of insecurity
Mm.
that potentially has a trauma that they haven't fully either addressed or have healed from. Honestly, the same way an alcoholic would go to alcohol or something. This need, like this thing that it looks to me as if you're using to numb yourself.
Got it.
That to me is crazy.
I have to admit that the crazy trope is a bit triggering for me, because I've been the crazy ex. But there's a whole apparatus around what gets you to that point, right?
Mm,
There's a whole world of things that include both parties, an interaction between both parties, and that elicits a reaction from one of the party, making it easy for maybe the more offending party to walk away and say, well, look, they're crazy, right?
mm.
And I feel so men have the advantage, like straight men have the advantage of this, because people so readily believe like rumors about women, right? Oh, she's crazy. I heard she's crazy. Like, there's been so many tables that I've been at with men like spreading rumors about women that they don't know. And it's usually another woman being like, where the hell did you hear that? Like, that doesn't even make any damn sense. So,
Yeah.
as somebody who finds himself in these situations, my first question is, what role, if any, do you think you play in eliciting said crazy?
I think it takes two to tango, right?
Mm,
I think there has to be something said about you attract what you ask for, type of thing.
okay.
So I think I'm putting something out there, and there's something that I find attractive about uh, these said crazy women. So I think I think I'm setting myself up a little bit.
How
Uh,
so?
I think for me personally, when it comes to the pursuit of a partner or whatever, I wouldn't say that I'm ready to pursue a partner, a life partner right now. There are things that I feel I need to take care of beforehand before I embark on that journey. So because of that, I think there is something to be said about the type of woman that I go for. There is essentially somewhere, whether it's subconsciously or consciously, deep down or surface level, I know that this isn't going to last long. I know that, there's going to be an out. I know something's going to pop off that's going to make it so that I can essentially walk away from this. And
But okay, so you yourself have the knowledge that you are not in a place to pursue anything serious in,
mm,
in a more long-term kind of way, right? You may
mm,
show up intentionally, you may only be talking to one person at a time, whatever your situation is. But my question is, do you make your situation clear to those who you are dating so that they have realistic expectations?
I try my best to do so. I do at some point.
That's okay. And what does that look like? Like, what do you mean you try your best? Like,
It's like that. It's that classic song. I'm just a soul whose intentions are good,
what are you
but
talking about?
I can
Talking
be
real terms.
misunderstood.
See, this is. I'm about to get crazy right now.
But
This
I don't
is
know, you
this.
know what I mean? I don't. I don't sit there like before I link up with somebody, before I start dating them, whatever. There's no conversation. There's no like essential like, hey, by the way, here are my intentions. What are your intentions? That feels like a job interview, and that's a personal thing. That's a personal thing in me. I'm gonna keep it real with you. That's just a thing in me. I like things to be a little bit more fluid in their integration into the conversation, I guess, when it comes to that. But that being said, at some point, if it does pop up or there's an opportunity for me to slip it in there, I'm very career focused. I'm not looking for anything serious right now. I will get it in there somehow, some way. I may not be like straight up like, yeah, unless if she straight up asks me, like that we're sitting at dinner and she asks me straight up like, yo, what are your intentions? Then I'm gonna be like, yo, blah blah blah. But me I'm not gonna do the first thing. I'm not gonna be like, by the way, here are my intentions. If it comes up in the conversation, and I feel like if it's gonna come up in the conversation, it's because that's what you're both looking for anyway in the thing. Do you know what I mean? Like there's been some type of conversation like this. I know people use this, Hinge and this Tinder and whatever and all that. So there's usually some
so-called hinges in the Tinder.
That's what I heard the kids are using nowadays.
All right.
But there's some type of conversation already, so where there's intentions are known,
right?
And I think if in those particular type of instances, yeah, you know what I mean, put your cards out on the table. But for me, if I see somebody walking down the street and I think they're attractive and I approach them and it goes successfully and and then we link up, I don't know how I feel about this person yet. I already know this isn't what I'm looking for. I'm not looking for a partner, so I don't know how I feel about this person yet. If it gets to that point where it comes up in the conversation, we've seen each other a couple of times, and it's like, yo, what are we? What's going down? I'll be very upfront. I'll be very honest.
Right.
I'll just be like, yo, I like how this is right now, and let's see. I move very slowly. You know what I mean? Let's just keep hanging out and see. And if she's cool with that, then she's cool with that. That's like a but if she's not cool with that, then I've given her the opportunity to tell me because I've been honest. So I would expect honesty back.
I mean, you've been honest, but there's a difference between honesty and transparency. And I respect what you're saying and how it works for you, right? I do know that there's an aversion to like in dating to be like upfront because it does seem kind of clinical. It does seem very what have you, but there are people who do date intentionally, and I think that that is more so on the rise. And especially like as you get older, like everybody's busy, and so I think that creating an environment that's open-ended also could lead somebody into thinking that they're in the running for something more serious. Things always start off being casual and feeling each other out. But if the intention isn't spoken about in a clear and concise way, then by the time it kind of comes out about in this roundabout way where you're saying, I like where things are going and kind of let's see, there's already an emotional investment. There's presumably physical contact, there's regular conversation and interaction. There's already going to be some part of somebody's mind that you're dealing with that thinks like, yeah, maybe this could be something a bit more serious, and already kind of framing the situation in that way. Instead, if it doesn't have to be date number one where you're like, listen, sweetheart, my lover is my career, and just so you know where you stand. No, it doesn't have to be like that. But I think that they're in an effort. I mean, if you like it, I love it. If you like the rush of endorphins of dealing with somebody who's been pushed to the brink or has a different picture in mind than what you have in mind, then good on you. But there is a way to kind of set intentions clearer and earlier, right?
Yeah, you are absolutely right. I can't disagree with you on that. My only caveat to that is that I still believe it does take two to tango.
All right, it's that time again, commercial break time. Get your water, stretch out your legs, shake it out. We are on episode number 2, and I am still without any sponsors, so I'm going to use this time to highlight some resources based on the topic that we have today. It's not about dealing with an unhinged partner or whatever. I think it's really important to highlight the need for Black male mental health. I think that Black men oftentimes don't really take the time to realize that they can use some support, and that maintaining a healthy mental hygiene is essential in order to navigate the hectic, racist world that we live in. So having an effective, safe community of people to help you navigate that is essential to success, in my opinion. I found a couple of resources for my American friends and for my UK friends. For those in America, if you are a Black man or if you know of any Black men who could use a little bit of support, there is therapyforblackmen.org. And like their title says, they're focused on providing culturally competent therapy for Black men and men of the African diaspora. There's also blackmenheal.org, and they are primarily on the East Coast, but they do have a lot of great resources and links and bits of information to get you started on your journey towards mental health, towards a positive mental state of being. And for my UK friends, it was a bit harder to find something, to be honest, but I did find an organization called blackmenshealth.org.uk, and they seem to have a really good collection of therapists in London and throughout Britain, and it does seem like a good place to start your investigation if you are looking for a therapist or are just looking for ways to maintain your mental health. So there's no shame in seeking help. There's no shame in needing support. This world is wild and we need all the support we can get. So check it out. Links in the show notes.
So if I'm expected to come to the table with clear intentions, I think she should as well. And I think I would like to think that I give off the impression that she can be honest with me. It's of course it's easier said than done, especially
Right.
when you're presented with something that you ultimately don't want to hear, really. You know what I mean? And I think where we can fall into situations that become difficult is when there are things left unsaid. And there's time that is allowed to be spent pondering these things, where they're not just being
Right.
talked about when they were already presented,
Right.
or you spend a lot of time festering over it, and even when you see each other the next time, you still don't bring it up, and then another layer is added because it's still in your head.
You present this in a way where it works for you in your life, but then your experiences aren't necessarily working, right?
Yeah, no, don't get it twisted. All this is from afterthought, from reflection.
Okay.
When I'm in the thick of it, it's horrendous.
So because some stories that you've told me, I'm like, what the hell?
Yeah, no, it's like I'm at a point now. It's just like, yo, if this happens one more time, I think I might not recover. So I'm like, I made a conscientious choice moving forward.
Yes.
that I've now been able to identify that as what I deem toxicity.
Okay.
And I'm in a process of healing where I'm learning to not go for that.
And what does that look like? Like, what does that healing journey, or what does that recognition, like, what do you need to change about your outlook in order to not be enticed by that?
Discipline and consistency. Because I know now that it's like ignorance was bliss, but I'm not ignorant no more.
Right.
So I can see it now. And once I see it, I have to practice as much as I can restraint. Like I have to.
Right.
Like there's no, it's it's just kind of like, yeah, that'd be great, but I've been down this road before,
Hmm.
and I'm not saying I'm perfect at it. You know, that's not. I'm not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Absolutely not. But I'd like to think I'm getting better,
Okay.
and that just requires it's baby stepping it, because yeah, it wasn't good. It wasn't good for me at all,
Right.
mentally, physically, emotionally. It wasn't good for me at all.
Right. Right. Okay. So, you're an adult.
Mm.
You're knee deep into your adulthood. What is it about where you're at right now, physically or mentally, that you said you're not ready for a serious relationship, not necessarily that you don't want one, but you're not ready now. What about your current state deems you not ready?
I think, given the experiences that I've had in the past, and you know, I'll say it again. I think it's my favorite saying. It takes two to tango.
Mm,
There is something. I'm obviously doing something toxic as well to have this rinse, wash, and repeat.
mm,
Do you know what I mean? And harping back to what I said even earlier, what I deem crazy is that like intense toxicity. That I can't deny that is in me.
mm-hmm,
There's something in me that that has, um, and so I need to deal with it. I need to heal from it. I need to be able to understand it and be able to, if it's not going to go away, uh, practice discipline on it, control over it.
mm.
And so that's what I mean when I'm not ready. I'm still healing. I'm in a process of healing. I'm in a process of self discovery from that. I'd like to think I've seen a few relationships that I would deem very healthy and very like things that I would inspire or would like to be like. And I also see what those require
Hmm.
and what that takes. Um, and I'm not there yet.
Mm.
I'm
Very
not there yet.
self-aware. That's very self-aware.
Yeah. And I'm just, and, I got to keep it 100. If I'm, I got to keep it 100 with myself.
Right.
And, so I got to, I'm on a journey
Yeah.
and I got to figure me out.
Mm.
I can't take care of somebody else if I can't take care of myself.
Totally. Like how will you know when you've healed enough? How will you know when you're ready?
I'll just know. Like, I don't know how to explain it other than that.
Mm.
It'll be, they always say, in those relationships, like, it's never meant to be hard.
Mm.
It's just supposed to like flow through. Like I said, harping back to the stuff that I'm dealing with and stuff. There's trust issues as well with that.
Right.
You know what I mean? I just, I've had my heart broken
Mm-hmm.
more than once. And so there's a reluctancy to like just give that out
Mm.
from the jump.
Mm-hmm.
And then in relationships, it's just a general saying, that overflows to my friendships
Yeah.
and my relationship with my family. So it's like I also need to learn how to mend those too.
Yeah.
There's a lot to be gained from healing with people around you and the support and I think I can still do that with family, with friends, because I have neglected those relationships in the past as well. So even before I start trying to find a partner, I
Mm.
need to make sure that I sort these relationships out first. Again, this is personally for me. These are my box tickers. And when I feel that I'm in a place where I feel comfortable being vulnerable just with people in general, then perhaps there will be, when I get into those situations again, it'll go differently because I will have already learned how to be vulnerable in, probably, I would say, that the safest way possible with people who already love and support me.
On this journey that you're going through, are you in therapy?
No.
Why not?
Again, a reluctancy to be open with someone else.
Mm.
I still, there is a bit of me that, every person deserves their secrets, and has them. And there's definitely a reluctancy for that. And also, I would say, still kind of what could be deemed as a toxic male masculine thing. I was like, I can figure it out on my own.
Oh God.
You know, there's definitely that. It's just like, I don't need to pay for that. Or I could go on YouTube and, watch some videos, and I'll figure it out. It'll be fun. I don't need. Yeah, there's no cap. There's definitely elements of that
Okay.
in it.
So you grew up in an African household, your first generation, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Was mental health, and especially as a man, was mental health something that was ever spoken about in your house?
No.
No. Okay.
Mm.
Would you be open to going to therapy? Like now that you vocalize this like thing that isn't a thing, like you need like, especially with our minds where we live every single day, right?
Yeah.
Having a third party. I don't think that therapy is the end all and be all, but I think that it is helpful to provide us with a different perspective of a professional who is not on anybody's side, right?
Mm.
Would you consider it, or are you still pretty hard pressed that like, nah?
I'm still pretty hard pressed,
Mm,
only because the things that I have been doing in my life as of late have been very beneficial to me, to my mental health and my physical health and my emotional health thus far.
mm,
So I wouldn't say I'm pressed to do it. Like,
okay.
I don't feel that I'm in a place right now where I need to talk to somebody
Okay.
about this, what's going on in my head. If that does happen, I'd like to hope that I can utilize what I've been doing as of late and be that much more vulnerable and take the jump.
Right.
But I mean, I won't know that until I get there.
If you are curious, it doesn't have to be code red to go and see a therapist. If you're curious, if you just want, it doesn't need to be a level 10 in order for you to
Yeah, yeah,
figure
yeah.
those things out. That's all.
No, I feel you on that. And maybe I'll consider it.
Okay.
I'll consider it.
Progress,
Yeah.
growth, y'all. Growth. You said that you're doing other things. Do you mind sharing? Like, what do those other things that you do look like on your path for healing and just peace?
um, a lot of walking.
Mm-hmm.
I walk a lot,
Yeah.
and I do morning devotionals.
What is that? What are morning devotionals?
Morning devotional, for example, at the moment I do a Christian one,
Okay.
and it's really just kind of someone. It's like a Bible verse is
Mm-hmm.
read to you, and then they give you an interpretation. It's supposed to be more often than not, it's inspirational,
Okay.
whatever. And then so yeah, I go for a walk, I do that,
Mm,
and then I listen to like self help books from a spiritual standpoint.
got it.
So I recently read this book called Radical Acceptance.
Mm-hmm.
It was basically like a pamphlet for Buddhism, but it was quite insightful. And then I'm reading currently this book called the 40 Rules of Love, and it's based off of the philosopher poet Rumi.
Okay.
So I try to start my morning off with something inspirational. I try to stretch, try to do yoga,
Mm-hmm.
I work out, and these things are done from a more holistic mindset of I'm doing these things for my brain.
Right.
The benefits to my body are kind of like just the cherry on top.
Got you.
And I do try to connect with people
Mm-hmm.
more. Like I try to say call somebody, hang out with somebody, talk to
Right.
somebody. Even though I like my alone time, I still try to make an effort to like be around someone because that is good. It's proven that it's good for you.
Yeah.
And yeah, I try to eat really well. I try to get sleep. I try to drink a lot of water. I do these very practical things at the moment that I find have had very beneficial things for my mind. And with all these benefits from these things that I'm doing, it's allowing me, it's opening me up more and more to the possibility of becoming more and more vulnerable.
Yeah. I'm going to wrap this up, but before I do, is there anything that you want to say? Do you want to leave us with any kind of words or anything that I didn't touch on, or, you want to spit a verse or, I don't know.
Nah, I got. You just came out of that with those. I was like, oh snap.
No. I mean, more words. I'm just fucking around. But like, is there any I want to give the last word to my guest. So if there's any word that you want to leave us with, now's your time.
Baby steps.
Okay. Perfect.
Yeah.
And where can the people find you?
You can find me on the gram at Jammy Kasongo. I think that's the only platform that I'm really on. You can also catch me at the Theatre Royal, Drury Lane. I'm going to be playing Kristoff in the Frozen musical.
Woo! And that is in London for the London babes. It's going to be on the big stage. So thank you so much. Thank you for talking to me about this. It was really insightful, and I want to thank you for being vulnerable and honest.
Thank you. All right. No thing.
I love that conversation. So first of all, shout out to Jammy. Thanks for going there with me. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for being transparent. Even listening back to it, I just think that it's such a beautiful and succinct way of really being honest about where you are in your life and ultimately who you are. And as always, thank you to you, the listener. This is episode number 2 in the books, step by step, baby steps, if you will. And I'm just so happy and honored to each and every one of you who listens. This podcast is a labor of love. And each week I dedicate myself to bring you a conversation that is not only illuminating, but holds space for the messiness and vulnerabilities that relationships often bring forth. So thank you again. And to give you my own little take on a famous Maya Angelou quote, if somebody shows you who they are or tells you where they're at in life, believe them. There has never been a moment in my past, in my history, where anybody has been able to cajole me out of or convince me away from whatever season I was in. In life, there are so many different seasons. There's a season for solitude, for education, for friendships, for romance. And a lot of times these seasons overlap. But where somebody else is at on their journey is not a reflection of you, and it's not a reflection of your worthiness. If somebody has the decency to be honest with you and to be honest about what they can give in your dynamic, you have to respect it. And if it's not in line with where you're at and what you're ready to receive and ready to give, it's okay to go elsewhere. It's okay to have boundaries and walk away. Don't make the same mistakes I made. The great thing about making mistakes like that with overreacting or allowing somebody to get you out of your character is that you learn. It's a hard lesson, but you do learn. And I'm happy to say that after those 2 men in the distant past called me crazy, I've never walked away from a relationship feeling wounded, feeling used, feeling deceived. Those experiences allowed me to have better discernment and to be clear about my own season and what I was looking for in a partner. Did it always lead to relationship success? No, but that's not necessarily a failure. What it did lead to was a more grounded and centered sense of self and the ability to meet somebody where they're at. So I hope the same for you. I am here every Thursday, so tune in next week for an all new episode of I Shave My Ass for This. Also, follow me on socials. It's I Shave My Ass for This across platforms, and subscribe to this podcast. Subscriptions help. They let me know that you're listening and that you're grooving with it. If you're not ready to subscribe, that's cool too. There'll be another episode either way. So until then, be safe, be kind, and be you.